Global experts are warning us of the next great risk. Now, there's a lot of risks. The world is dangerous, but there are some big ones that are looming out in the horizon that could be coming on shore, and you need to be aware of them so you can be prepared. Now, it's important to understand that humans are horrible investors for a number of reasons, mostly because we are very emotional. We also suffer from many biases, and so we need to be aware of those biases. Now, some of you are way too pessimistic, and you're never going to survive because you're just so scared. You have a defeated attitude. Others are the opposite, and that's where I fall in, where I'm the eternal optimist, and I have to be aware of my own optimism bias. And so I believe that everything's going to be okay. But it's not always. And if you have a pessimism bias, sometimes things are okay. And so we have to be aware of those biases. And so we have to understand what's at risk. We want to make sure that we're dividing between what's possible, so possibilities, and what's probable, or probabilities. Now, almost everything is possible. We could drive ourselves crazy thinking of every possibility. What we want to find out is what is probable. And then we want to manage on those. Well, let's take a look at a couple of global experts with risks that they see coming and what you and I should be focusing on in order to be prepared for this and see the world in sort of the way they do. So let's take a look at this article. We can see here it's a Goldman Sachs legend, a crypto star, and a top banker warn of the next great risk. So in a year, or I should say actually in a couple of years where we've had quote unquote black swan events, right? Who could have ever seen that we'd have this pandemic and the whole world would be locked down and then we'd have this war and all these things, of course, I would have seen. History tells us that this is the time that we see this. But anyway, we have this Russia's invasion of Ukraine, sending shockwaves through global politics and markets. Of course, inflation is the story. It's soaring worldwide. Supply chains are unraveling. We have the largest investors are assessing long-term consequences of the events they didn't see coming. So what are these? Now, there's three here. I'm only going to cover two of these experts. Abby Joseph Cohen. She's the former Goldman Sachs Group, Inc. strategist known for bold market calls who now teaches at Columbia University. And then Ken Moelis, he's a billionaire whose investment bank advises the world's largest companies. Let's just jump down and let's look at his first here. And so this fits within my thesis. Again, as I said, who could have predicted all of this? Well, history did. I've talked extensively about my 3 cycles thesis, 3 revolutionary cycles that are converging at the same time, a 250-year political revolution cycle, an 80-year financial revolution cycle, and a 50-year technological revolution cycle, all 3 converging right now, which is why the world's so crazy and explains what comes next, which I talk about a lot, the pendulum swinging. It's been swinging towards centralization. It's a 250-year pendulum, and now it's swinging back towards decentralization. I've talked about this extensively. You can find videos of this on my main YouTube channel, Mark Moss, and just search Mark Moss Cycles. There's a whole playlist on my main channel. You can see all those videos. But here we have Ken Moelis saying the same thing. He says we need to be prepared for the end of globalization. So globalization is centralization as the world got more connected and, of course, has been basically taken over by main central entities like the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, the World Trade Organization, the IMF, the UN, etc. But now he sees, as I see, the end of that and the end of globalization. So he says what we're seeing in front of us right now is deglobalization. I did a talk at my Market Disruptors live conference in May in Dallas, and the name of my talk was De-Evolution and then Re-Evolution. So I talked about how the world is de-evolving or de-globalizing, and then how it will re-evolve. I don't know if, editor, if we can link that video up here, else you can just go to my main YouTube channel and search that de-evolution, re-evolution. But you're going to see nation states look internally and make sure they have the ability to support themselves. And so right now the world is codependent. Because of globalization, we're all dependent on each other. But the trend will be that we'll see the end of these giant nation states, end of this globalization, and each country will become a lot more isolationist, and they're going to become dependent on themselves. They don't want to be dependent on other people's supply chains for crucial goods and services, like we found in the last 2 years has been a problem. So take Germany, for example, it says. Germany's strategy up to this point was to outsource their military to the U.S., so they have the U.S. will just take care of us. Outsource their financial management to the EU. Forget our own policies. Let's just join the EU, let them deal with all that. They've outsourced their energy supply to Russia. we don't need to get natural gas out of the ground. We can shut down our nuclear. We'll just get what we need from Russia. And their end market to China. And we don't even need to manufacture anything. We'll just buy everything we need from China. Well, how's that worked out? They have massive problems. Of course, I've been talking about this extensively, specifically around the energy problem that they found themselves in. But you can see exactly how this has played out in the problems. Now, throughout history, most countries would not outsource items that were important to their well-being. So things that are crucial, national security, you would want to make sure you have those things under control. They're secured. You don't want to just outsource things that are crucial, life or death, like food. Food being one of them, and energy is showing up as extremely important. Of course, we don't need new iPhones. We don't need a lot of things, but what we do need is food, and what we do need is energy. The two main, most important things. We do need those. So you would think, yes, those would be important, and those should be national security issues. What's going to happen now is each society is going to have you think about, did I outsource something that I'm not comfortable with? Like, for example, we found out in the United States during the pandemic that something like 90% of our medicine, antibiotics, come from China. Well, we need those things. If we don't, a lot of pain and damage and death could come from that, but they could cut us off at any time. That's a problem. We found that the majority of our rare earth elements come from China. Well, what do we need those for? Well, they go to make all our electronics. So that means we could lose our TVs and things like that. Yes. It also means things that the military needs, like their radar, their sonars in their submarines, missile guidance. And so we couldn't even go to war with China if we don't have access to our own rare earth elements. So did I outsource something that I'm not comfortable with? I think the answer is yes. It says here, in the US, we have a spectacular country filled with the resources we need. The fact that we don't have an energy supply right now has been a choice. So the US has more energy than we need. As a matter of fact, most of the world really can't operate with wind and solar. I know that's controversial, because there's not enough sun and there's not enough wind. That's not controversial. That's fact. Now, the United States is blessed with both wind and sun, and we have massive amounts of natural energy, including oil, natural gas, etc. So we have that, but other countries aren't so lucky. As a matter of fact, Germany has gotten itself into a position where it does not have energy supplies. It doesn't have the wind. They've shut down their nuclear. They don't have their energy in the ground, and so they're stuck dealing with Germany. And then we have, the war and the invasion, which is not a good thing. But what it does is it highlights to people, back to the question, can I provide the basics? Each country will move to protect their own citizens. As a result, they might deglobalize ahead of you. So now we're already starting to see this play out. We're starting to see nations starting to say, we're not going to export anymore. So India is not going to export food anymore. We have Hungary just put a ban on exporting any type of energy, including firewood. They won't export firewood. And so we're starting to see countries are now starting to play this out, game theory, if we will, trying to beat each other, trying to hoard whatever they have, realizing that they may be able to get more of it. And we can see that the populations all over the world want to eat and be heated in the winter. Now, just a side note, they want to tell you that global warming is the worst thing in the world for you, but what really kills people, people really suffer from, is cold. As a matter of fact, history is basically a story of people being hungry and cold. People die of cold. People want to heat their homes in the winter. People aren't dying of heat stroke mostly. They want access to cheap electricity. All these things are going through the roof. So food and electricity, the two things people want, are becoming unaffordable, which is why we're seeing massive protests throughout Europe, throughout South and Central America, Sri Lanka, of course. Some of our policy moves here are going to have a very long-term ramifications. We froze the bank reserves of Russia. I've talked about this extensively. When they invaded Ukraine, we seized their bank accounts, not just dollars. They had currencies, lots of different currencies. And what that did is that proved to countries, it says here, that a substantial number of finance ministers, other countries around the world, have to rethink, are their assets secure? Well, Russia is one of 3 global superpowers with nuclear weapons, and their assets weren't secure. So if you're not a global superpower with nuclear weapons, what chance do you have? The answer is you don't have any. And so they're being forced to rethink this, which is this deglobalization. So this is a trend I've been talking about. I see it coming. You need to be prepared for this. What does it mean? It means higher prices. It means prices are going to be more expensive. It means that we're going to continue to have more disruptions, more supply chain disruptions. It means that we're going to have continued protests and problems around the world. And depending on what country you're in, it could even be problems with food and energy in those countries. Now, that one other one I want to talk about quickly here is this fading American dream. Abby Joseph Cohen says, the secret sauce for the U.S. growth has been what we've had: strong population growth and strong gains in the labor force. I'm concerned about that right now. So back to this deglobalization. If the world starts breaking down, each nation is going to need to be dependent on itself. Now, the United States is blessed by God, where it has the most arable land. We can grow all our own food. China can't. We have all our own energy. China doesn't. They have to import 85% of their energy. We have all the consumers. China can manufacture stuff, but they can't buy it. We can manufacture and we can buy it. We have water on both sides, and we have the most fresh water and most tributaries in the world. And so we have everything we need to survive this deglobalization if we can keep the American dream alive, if we can continue to have population growth and strong gains in the labor force. A couple things he says is that, do we have enough new scientists? Do we have enough new engineers? Do we have enough new doctors? And the answer is no, we don't. And so while other nations are trying to get ahead, they're having massive amounts of their population learning real things they need, not wasting all their time on things in college that will get them nowhere. They're learning STEMs, right? Science, technology, things like that. They're becoming scientists, they're becoming engineers, they're becoming doctors. And we need more of that if we want to continue to get ahead. And we don't have that right now. Does every new family in the U.S. have the opportunity to do better than their parents did? Unfortunately, the answer is no. And the reason why is because of inflation, because the Fed keeps printing more money. We can see what we've seen over the last 30 to 40 years is that the median household income in the U.S. has adjusted for inflation, has not risen. So that means that your quality of life is going down. You have to work more hours to get even less goods and services than your parents did before you. Not that long ago, you could have one person in the family working and you could achieve the American dream. You could have the house, you could have the car, all of those things. Today, two people need to be working in the household, and yet still you're not really able to achieve the American dream because prices have been going up faster than your income has gone up, and that's a problem. And so these are two crises that these experts see. Deglobalization, I've been talking about a lot. I think it's easy enough to see coming if you're paying attention, and we can be prepared for this. The bigger crisis is, will the U.S. be able to pivot to get back on track to become the leader as this deglobalization happens? I think the answer is yes, but again, I have an optimism bias. What's your bias and what do you think? Leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. As always, give me a thumbs up on this video if you like it, and please subscribe to this channel. I'm trying to grow it as fast as I can so I can get this word out to more people. You can help by clicking that button. Oh, and the bell notification so you know when I put new videos out. And that's what I got for you today. All right, to your success. I'm out. Since you've stayed to the end, I know you like this video, which means you're probably gonna really like this video right here and this video right here.